Okay, recording in progress. Got it. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 2021 Candidate Forum for the Office of Mayor. This is an open public forum available to the general public. All candidates running for mayor have been invited to attend. And I thank the candidates for participating in this evening and for putting your name forward for public office. That's a noble thing to do. My name is Matthew Kleywegt. I was a candidate in the 2017 election in Ward 7. And, I thought it would be interesting to try this from this side. So I'm looking forward to this tonight. Tonight's forum is brought to you by the Rat Creek Press. The Rat Creek Press is a not-for-profit community newspaper in north central Edmonton that serves the communities of Alberta Avenue, Cromdale, Delton, Eastwood, Elmwood Park, Parkdale, Spruce Avenue, and Westwood. And I would like to thank those community leagues for their support. Before we get going, I acknowledge that all of this is taking place in wonderful Treaty 6 territory. This is the traditional territory of the Cree, Saulteaux, Nakota Sioux, Stoney, and currently home to many Indigenous people. And by living and working here, we are all treaty people. And in what I'm doing here, and in what I do, I hope and I attempt to honor the intent of that treaty. Now, this evening, the forum is set on a 2-minute speaking schedule. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes to give an opening statement. After that, I'm going to ask a series of questions, which are going to be sent to me via the messenger, and you will have 2 minutes to respond. You don't have to take all 2 minutes. And in fact, if you wish, I'm not going to compel you to answer anything. You can say pass. But at the end of 1 minute and 30 seconds, I'm going to put up a little hand emoji, which you've seen if you've done one of these meetings before. And at the end of 2 minutes, I will mute you. I will mute you if you are speaking at any time you are not invited to speak. Also, I will turn off your I'll turn off your camera if anything not safe for work should appear in your background. I'm doing this because my role here is to ensure that everyone has a fair and equal opportunity to speak and to be heard. I won't be fact-checking any candidate statements. This isn't a debate. I'm not interviewing these candidates. If another candidate wants to speak to something else that was said, they can when it's their turn to speak, but you will still only get 2 minutes to speak. So I recommend keeping that to a minimum. This forum is scheduled to be 2 hours long. There are 9 candidates here currently, so this time is going to pass quickly. I'm hoping to keep us on schedule and to answer as many questions as possible. I intend for this whole thing to wrap up at 9:30 so you guys can get a good night's sleep. I understand you've had a long day. I am going to rotate the order that I ask questions in, and so attempt to keep this as fair as possible. I'm going to start this in the order that I just happen to have you on my screen. And with every question, a new person will be asked to speak first. And in this way, I'm hoping to keep this as fair as possible. With that being said, I'm going to invite the first candidate to give an opening 2-minute statement. And for me, that person is candidate Steele.
Hello, I'm so pleased to have been invited here to speak with you today. My name is Diana Steele, and I'm hoping to be elected mayor of Edmonton on October 18th. I have a Bachelor of Education degree, a master's degree in leadership. I worked at Northwest College for almost 10 years, where I taught business courses, and then I moved over to the government of Alberta, where I developed senior leadership policies for our deputy ministers. Currently, I work for the Pilgrim's Hospice Society, and I have been the president of Crestwood Community League for the past 7 years, where I have been on the ground every day listening to the needs of Edmonton citizens. And this is where I discovered my love for servant leadership. Servant leaders are the types of leaders we should be looking for in all politicians. Those who listen, understand, and empathize with others, and who put our city first over their own ambitions. They behave as true elected representatives of the people. The servant leader understands the importance of keeping people here in our city to dream bigger dreams. We need a compassionate, consistent, measured, and transparent leader who can rally a 1 million person team to make our city the best in the world. And I know I am that leader. It's not about electing me as the mayor. It's about giving a voice to all Edmontonians through me. We are looking at quality of life issues here, and we have communities of people who are being left behind. I will be your voice. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Steele. The next person I have in my order is candidate Gregg.
Thank you very much, Matthew, and thank you to the Rat Creek Press, and also thank you to all you other candidates for putting your names forward and coming in, talking about the issues in our city. As I said, my name is Brian Gregg. My nickname is Breezy, and it's going to be on the ballot. It's going to say Brian Breezy in brackets Gregg, and I'm the oldest candidate, and I like to think I'm the youngest at heart. I joke around and I may have having fun, but I am really serious. I do want to make our city much better than it is now. I feel that I want to be the very first rock and roll mayor of Edmonton. And, in the past, we've had a lot of people from the business community step up and be mayors in our city. And we have people from the business community stepping up right now. And the thing is, they often talk about how we should run government like a business. And I disagree. I think we should run government like a rock and roll band. Like, taking care of business is super important, but most important is that we're all having fun. Everybody's having a good time, okay? And you know what? That's not the case right now at all. Like, a lot of people are not having a good time in our city, and I want to change that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, candidate Gregg. Next in my list, I have candidate Comrie.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. My family's journey began in the city of Edmonton in the early 1900s. So my experience with Edmonton, I'm born and raised, and I've seen the best of times. I have two sons that are 26 and 28, and I've explained to them about the city of champions and what it really means. At times in our history, our sports teams had really excelled and did very, very well. But it wasn't the tail of the tape. Tail of the tape means it's the true success stories in Edmonton come from the hardworking people, the business owners, the people that get up and go to work in the morning and come home, put in a hard day's work. Unfortunately, the last 8 years has been extremely challenging. I have a disagreement with the federal government and federal policy and their climate initiatives. It has brought upon Alberta and the city of Edmonton extreme hardship. And that can be witnessed in the downtown core and on White Avenue. But it is my intent as mayor to bring a higher level of integrity and accountability. One of my platform criteria is a plebiscite on LRT spending. My belief that we're spending in the wrong areas. In addition, I call on a financial audit, an independent audit, to make all city expenditures transparent for taxpayers to see. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Comrie. Next, I have candidate Krushell.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you may now begin.
I believe our city is at a pivotal point in time, and our next mayor will need to hit the ground running, have a real understanding of how our city works, and an appreciation for what it's like to run a business. And I have that experience. I spent nearly 2 decades in municipal government, and over the last 8 years, I have co-founded 2 successful tech companies. I came to Edmonton for love, but I stayed because I fell in love with Edmonton. I love this city. And I'm returning to politics because I care about Edmonton and our collective future. We need jobs and opportunity, reasonable taxes, and a city where all of us feel included, safe, and connected. Since launching my campaign, I have been listening to Edmontonians and building my plan for our city based on 4 core pillars: a vibrant and connected city, economic recovery and growth, core services and maintenance with a focus on customer service, and supports for our most vulnerable. But let's be real. No platform can anticipate everything that our city and council will face over the next 4 years, and nor should it. So I think what voters need to know is what you can expect from me as your mayor. I bring a balanced and bold approach, and I have a track record of getting things done for our city. And I'm here running for mayor because we need our next mayor to be one that unifies and not divides, one that is guided by common sense and not ideology. We need a leader who is running for something, not against. A vote for me is a vote for Edmonton. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Krushell. Next, I have on my order, candidate Watson.
Thank you. We didn't need a global pandemic to know that the way we've been leading and managing our city isn't the way forward. It's time for a fresh perspective, a new way of solving problems, leadership. I was born and raised here in Edmonton. I grew up on the north side in the community of Beverly, just down the avenue from many of the communities that are represented by Rat Creek Press. And I built a life, raised a family here. I went on to be a senior executive in a Fortune 500 global, extremely complex organization. I spent 15 years leading teams in 6 countries across 14 time zones. And through that experience, I was mentored by some of North America's most incredibly smart leaders. And I learned a very important formula that I think works well in any organization. And that is lead with a clear vision, build a high-performing, accountable team, have a relentless focus on who you serve, who your customer is, and be able to deliver for them. Now, after 15 years, I had the choice of moving to Silicon Valley or staying in Edmonton, and of course, I chose Edmonton. I've had so many people that helped me along the way, and so I felt like this was my opportunity to give back to my city. And so I went to work for Edmonton Economic Development Corporation. I was focused on transforming and restructuring the way we do economic development. And now I'm stepping forward with aspirations of being our next mayor so that I can have a broader impact on our city and our future.
Thank you, candidate Watson. Next in my order, I have candidate Oshry.
Well, thank you, Matthew, and thank you everybody for having me. I moved to Edmonton when I was a child, and this city has given me and my family the opportunity for success, and I want to make sure that my kids now share in that opportunity. And for the first time in a generation, there's uncertainty and anxiety as to where our successes are going to come from. And the focus of my campaign is to ensure that everybody can share in the successes of the city going forward. So the 4 themes of our campaign is around economic recovery. So we have to make sure that people who are unemployed or underemployed have well-paying jobs. We have to make sure that our small businesses that have had a really hard time over the last 18 months can survive and then thrive. And we have to make sure that our downtown and other areas of the city become vibrant and stay vibrant. The second theme is Edmonton for everyone, is how we put it. There's people that have fallen behind. There's people that are experiencing, a chronic homelessness, people experiencing poverty. There's seniors that are having a very difficult time, being isolated over the last 18 months. And we have to make sure that we take care of everybody that needs it. It's very, very important to me. The third theme is around small infrastructure. there's small projects around the city that we can do that can make neighborhoods successful. So if a neighborhood's looking for an off-leash park or a playground or something like that, now is the time, given the economic realities, that we can still build the city, but do it in a really cost-effective and practical way. So we can invest in local neighborhoods, which will make a big impact on everyone's lives day to day. And the fourth theme is around fiscal management of the city. We've been spending a lot of money on a lot of things over many, many years, property tax increases higher than inflation and the cost of living, and it's enough. We really need to focus our city administration on not spending on everything, but really spending on the right things. And the time for platitudes.
I'm sorry, Candidate Oshry, you are out of time.
All right, so the time for action is now. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Oshry. Next, I have Candidate Sohi.
Well, thank you, Matthew. I would like to begin my remarks today by acknowledging that we are gathered on Treaty 6 territory. I came to this land, this city, with nothing. I couldn't speak English, did not know much about the Canadian way of life, and I struggled a lot, faced racism, discrimination, and bullying. Despite these challenges, this city propelled me to live to my fullest potential. My wife, Sarabjit, and I built our lives here. We thrived in this city, on the land that we share with Indigenous communities. This city also gave the opportunity for us to give back to make it even a better place. That is why I love Edmonton. That is why I have always put Edmonton and Edmontonians first. And that is at the foundation of why I want to be your mayor, because I believe in the possibility of our city as a place that can lift people up, as a place where everyone can find community, opportunity, and fulfillment. I want to use my experience and knowledge to build a better city, a place with stronger public services and amenities, a robust and diverse economy, a thriving downtown and business districts, and a thriving arts and cultural scene. And I want to ensure we protect and support the most vulnerable people in our community and adapt and respond to the challenges of climate change. I want to build an economy that works for all Edmontonians, to leverage my knowledge and experience to unlock new opportunities to grow our businesses and create well-paying middle-class jobs by supporting energy retrofits for homes.
I'm sorry, Candidate Sohi, you are out of time.
In short, I want to create an Edmonton for all of us.
Thank you. Next, I have Candidate Chukwudi.
Hello, can you hear me there?
I can. I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
Yeah, it's all right. I'm used to people mispronouncing my last name, but it's all right. I was born here, and my dad was a draft dodger. He was supposed to go to Vietnam, and he didn't think it was a justified war, and he came to Canada, where he met my mom. My mom is an Indigenous woman. My mom is from Enoch, Cree Nation, just off Highway 60. And my dad is from Louisville, Kentucky. So I have dual citizenship in both countries, United States and Canada. And I served in the military, Canadian Air Force, as a helicopter pilot in Afghanistan for 3 years, and in Bosnia for another 3 years, a total of 6. And got home, went back to the University, U of A, and got my first degree in geological engineering. And went off to work for an oil company for 15 years. I worked all across Canada, Rainbow Lake, in Saskatchewan, and also I went to work in Houston, Texas, and South Dakota. And I got transferred to Qatar. And I got there within 6 months. I became the country manager for the third largest drilling company in the world. And I was there for 7 years. The drilling, all of the Middle East for 7 years. And when the oil price went down, I came home, went back to U of A, got my master's degree in civil engineering, and gone to work for the city. And I never cared so much about politics. And I felt politicians know what they're doing. They have all the answers, you know.
I apologize. You are out of time.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Next, I have candidate Marah. Candidate Marah, are you here? This is Augustine Marah. Okay, I do not see that candidate. All right then. Well, thank you everyone for those statements. So I had candidates Steele, Gregg, Comrie, Krushell, Watson, Oshry, Sohi, and Chukwudi. I'm going to then give the first speaking opportunity to candidate Gregg. And as you might imagine, having done a few of these, the first of our questions is about crime. What would you do, candidate Gregg, to address crime in our city?
Thanks very much, Matthew. Well, I've stated on my platform, there's 14 points on my platform, but it's my policy would be to freeze the police budget and instead invest in mental health and addiction services to try to reduce crime. And to do that right now, like in this very next few days coming up, I feel like the biggest thing driving crime in our city and tragedy is the drug addiction problem, and the solution to it. Like, I'm a solution expert. I look and try to find out, what's the problem, what's the thing. The solution to our drug problem is to change the federal laws. Like they did it in Portugal, they decriminalized and they cut their crime rate in half. So if we cut our crime rate in half, we can cut the police budget in half. So that's why I'm cheering for Jagmeet Singh, because he's the only federal candidate that's committed to decriminalizing drugs. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Gregg. Next to answer this question will be candidate Comrie.
Thanks for the question. What's alarming is that Edmonton is the 4th highest crime city in Canada. It's clear what we're doing is not working. Excessive and aggressive enforcement in all categories is clearly not working, and we need a new effort. We need to collaborate with people that are in the know, people that understand the drug addictions, the homelessness, the substance abuse, and all of these areas. Neighborhood crime is over the top. We must address this issue. I am completely opposed as to the way our city manages enforcement within our community. And we must find solutions. Those solutions are there. We must find them and implement them. We cannot continue at budget time to continue to pay more money to enforcement when it's clearly not working. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Comrie. Next on my list is candidate Krushell.
Thank you. I think the first thing that I would want to work with is getting back to what we were known for, which is community policing. So instead of a paramilitary approach to policing, I would be supportive of a community policing approach. We did very well when we had the beat cops out there working on more of a preventative model in terms of trying to address issues before they became major problems. I think that it's important also to work with the different agencies. We've had a new report that recently came out that I think it's important for the mayor and the new city council to review and figure out what action items should be implemented. I think it's important to work with all of the agencies and bring them together so that we can have a more collaborative funding model in terms of dealing with issues such as the opioid crisis, and that we can provide the supports that people do need in order to get through the opioid crisis. At the same time, however, we need to work with making sure that our city is safe, that all people feel safe, from the marginalized to, right now I'm hearing a lot of complaints from people that they do not feel safe when they're walking in certain areas, for example, in our downtown, especially women. I think that we need to look at technology and innovation in terms of providing more opportunity for lighting in our downtown to ensure that people feel more safe, that there's less dark spaces. And there's a number of other things in my platform. Thank you.
Matthew, you're muted.
Thank the timer yet. You may answer.
Did you call on me?
Yes.
Hey, thank you. This is such an important question, and it's one that I've talked about in a number of my policies, but I actually want to flip it around. I want to talk about safety. We need to create a safe city for all Edmontonians. And so some of the policies that I put in place actually leverage proven global practices. The first policy that I announced is creating a safe city for women and girls, because we know when we create a safe city for women and girls, it's a safe city for everyone. The policy talks about different practices like lighting and physical security presence and community policing. But one of the things that I'm most excited about as well is how we have the ability to focus on the areas of need so that we can invest in making sure that some of the areas where we're seeing highest crime levels actually get addressed. And so leveraging technology, we do have a platform where we are reporting crime around this city. We have 911, we've got a number of different input areas. And so really focusing on the areas that need the most attention and putting our money and practices there. Another thing that I want to talk a little bit about, though, is our police commission. And so our police commission is meant to govern the police services. And so in that police commission, we need to make sure that we continue to have those that have had experience with our police so that they can base their recommendations on their experience to make sure that our police are accountable and that we're really driving action in the areas most necessary.
Thank you, Candidate Watson. Candidate Oshry.
Thank you, Matthew. Sorry, it's 2 minutes, right, Matthew? I don't want to go over.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, thank you for the question. When I was on I'm the only candidate that's running for mayor that has police commission experience. I was on the police commission for 2 years, so I do know the ins and outs of how the police operate and the governance model that the police commission puts out. And, a lot of it is around the fiscal management of the police force and then the operational management as far as their values and what they do and what they don't do. It's really interesting that, there's the new program called Help that the police partner with a social agency to help people instead of arresting them. And that's a good way to adjust our resources. There's the neighborhood engagement teams that are doing a good job in the similar way. And so we have to figure out which agency is the best to use our valuable services and finances to get the job done. And so, sometimes it's the police. You want to feel safe. You want to have police around when absolutely necessary. We have to make sure that the police are operating appropriately. And then sometimes it shouldn't be the police. There should be some other agency or other service that's called. And then the budget needs to be allocated accordingly. Right now our budget for the police department is about 15% of our operating budget. It's almost $500 million. So it's the biggest line item on the budget. And we have to make sure that that money is allocated to the entity that's going to do the best job for the services that are needed. But people are going to need to feel safe, and we have to make sure that when they need the police are available. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Oshry. Next, candidate Sohi.
In 2005, in the community where I lived in Millwoods, a terrible incident happened. A store clerk was murdered working at night. And I got involved in the community to set up Millwoods Crime Prevention Council. And we worked with the police to set up community policing in Millwoods. And I came to know so many wonderful, dedicated police officers who give their best to make our communities safe. When I was a city councillor, I worked with Edmonton Police Service to stop youth violence in Millwoods. Actually became a bridge builder. I became a bridge builder between the community, families, and EPS. I also served on Edmonton Police Commission and worked very closely, understand how resources are allocated to policing. So I am deeply committed to community safety and making sure our Edmonton is safe for everyone. I'm also deeply concerned about rise in racism and discrimination, particularly against Muslim women who have become target of hate and violence. And that is why I have announced my 100-day plan to end and put together an action plan to stop hate violence and take immediate actions to stop that. And that includes empowering communities to ensure they're better supported. We need to make sure that all Edmontonians feel safe. And I absolutely agree with the Cheryll that women and girls downtown and rest of the city do not feel safe. And we need to work hard with EPS, with community organizations dealing with social issues of disorder, homelessness, mental health, invest in people and prevention to make our city safe for all of us.
I'm sorry, you are out of time. Thank you. Candidate Chukwudi.
What I could say about the crime rate in the city is when I was growing up, there wasn't much of it here. I think lack of job and opportunity is one of the reasons the crime rate has gone up. And a lot of guys must have been laid off in the oil field or whatever job they were doing in the past that was bringing lots of money. Well, those jobs aren't around anymore, and they don't have the skills or training to be able to move on, get another job. So they get involved in drug dealing because it seems quite an easier way to make money these days. So, and gang violence, all this leads to that kind of problem. So, but I believe years and years ago, 10, 15, 20 years ago, when there were jobs, the crime rate wasn't very high, and people had work, people had things to do. Well, I met with Chief Dale McPhee, and I met with police union president, Sergeant Michael Elliott. And also I've spoken to the Justice Minister of Alberta, Casey Madu, regarding some of these problems. So chasing down drug dealers, I don't think it's the most important issue. Yeah, we need to get them off the street, but at the same time, we need to address the core issue, which is lack of work and opportunity and poverty, and also, be able to create a community togetherness, because and I've also talked about also crimes that happens in the community no one addresses. But sometimes we need to hire police officers from these communities as well. They know these guys, they know these people. And there's a lot of drive-by shooting here in Edmonton. When I hear that and see that in the news, it sounds like...
I'm sorry, but you are out of time.
Yeah, thank you.
And finally, candidate Steele.
We need to cut the head off the snake. Most criminal activity in our city right now is related to drugs or homelessness or mental health issues. And unfortunately, it's happening because people are feeling desperate because of the pandemic. That unfortunately has made it so much worse. We need to make sure we're bringing back our safe injection sites, however we can get that done. We need to solve homelessness, and we need to make sure that we are providing mental health supports for our citizens. And all of those items are listed in my platform, and they are priorities for me that I am looking to solve. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Steele. Okay. Well, moving right along, I'm going to ask a Rat Creek Press specific question. As you may be aware, the exhibition lands are slated to be redeveloped. There is a master plan to do that. How would you ensure that that master plan comes to fruition? As we've had plans in the past that haven't always happened the way we would like. So first to answer this is candidate Comrie.
Thank you so much, and hopefully you can hear me. Any plan that was designed any from 3, 5, 8, 10 years out is really inefficient at this point. There needs to be a reevaluation. Example would be the downtown business court. We can see the mess in the downtown area, and to continue on that same path would be foolish. So on my platform, I call for a financial audit, an independent audit, so that all of the city and taxpayers' money is accounted for. And the reason for that audit is to evaluate what kind of monies we have in order for us to address what we need to do. So some of these land holdings and some of these plans that are 5 years out, 7 years out, 10 years out, unfortunately, the plans are already outdated. And we need to focus on short-term solutions and get things done quickly. I oppose federal policy, so the alliance with the federal government, I'm sorry, I just don't agree. I believe that alliance continues a funding model that supports big government, and I oppose that. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Comrie. Candidate Krushell.
Well, thank you. I mean, one of the things in terms of the exhibition lands, I mean, I sat on Northlands board in the past, and it is the size of Disneyland. In fact, Blatchford's the size of Disneyland. So we have a number of different land development locations within Edmonton that are right now either in stages of development or being planned. I think the first approach I would take is we have a lot of activity happening in the land sector, and I think that the city is going to have to review whether this is the key business the city wants to be in. And I think it would be important to work with the community to see how much of the exhibition lands plan is doable and how that works with working with the private sector as well as the not-for-profit sector and the communities. I think that we're going to be faced with some very difficult challenges going forward, because at this point, we don't have a full understanding of our fiscal picture. We won't until the new city council takes office. And we know that 30% of Albertans were deferring their mortgages while they could. We know that 68% of the city's operating budget is based on taxes and tax revenue. And so I think we're going to have to be very prudent and work with the community and hear the concerns. But I think we're going to have to review pretty much all of our land projects and see where we're at and what makes sense that we can proceed with. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Krushell. Candidate Watson.
This is one of the areas of the city that is top of mind for me, and you can understand why, because I grew up in the north side. And so I have seen what's happened with the exhibition lands in the last few years since we shut down the Coliseum, and I do not want to see another Blatchford. This is a hole and a gap in our community. And I don't think that the city should be in the land ownership and land development business. So at the risk of being a potential Blatchford, we need to sell this land as quickly as possible. We need to allow for development in that area. We need to honor the history of the place. We've all got great memories from that area of the city, and the neighborhood is also reliant on an activation in that area. Concordia has a great deal of interest and has plans and ideas about what they would potentially use some of that land for. And so I'll just close again and say, we as the city of Edmonton need to step back from doing big land developments like this, because all we are left with then is decade of absence of activity in that space.
Thank you, Candidate Watson. Candidate Oshry.
Well, thank you for this question, and I'm going to be quite blunt about this one. I called for the city to get out of the land development business months ago. It was one of the first policies that I released, and I'm really, really happy that that Kim and Cheryl are on side with this now. I just think it's fundamentally was the right decision months ago when I first talked about it, and good for them for agreeing. The Blatchford development has been a disaster, and now the exhibition land development is looking to be a disaster. The only area of that land that's really worth anything for development is really right now around Borden Park, and Concordia is interested in some of the land and around the LRT stop. So the rest of it is going to be really suspect. And the only way this is going to work is if we let the private sector do what the private sector does best and develop land. And so my plan is to put it into tender and let them figure it out. The city needs to take a step back in all these kind of land developments. The one other thing I would add is there's a really interesting opportunity with the Northlands, with the Coliseum building. I think we have to look at that again. Tearing it down for $50 million or whatever that price tag is ballooned to now does not seem like a good use of our resources. So that's where the city can play to find a use for that building. And then otherwise, we really need to get out of the land development business and finally get Blatchford and this piece of land developed. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Oshry. Candidate Sohi.
Well, thank you. There are a number of sites in the city where city is trying to develop and revitalize, and this site is one of them. I think first thing I would do if I'm elected is that I will have council and private sector developers and experts meet to prioritize where we need to get what done. That's one principle that I would follow. The second is that we need to have a stronger partnership with the private sector. Yes, the city needs to set the guidelines. Absolutely, city has to set the standards, and we need a partnership with private sector to make those visions a reality. We also need for affordable housing in our city. We also need for social housing in our city, and we need to encourage more infill. City has a 50% target infill development as we grow into the future, and we need to make that infill affordable as well. I think there's a number of principles that I would follow, but I would use my collaborative skills. I would use my bridge building skills to bring the right players together to prioritize where we need to focus on. We can't do all things at once. We need to make sure what we do a good job of, and engage the experts, particularly from the private sector.
Thank you, Candidate Sohi. Candidate Chukwudi. Candidate Chukwudi, are you there? Okay, we will continue on then. Candidate Steele.
I echo Kim and Cheryl and Michael's statements. I think that we need to get out of the land development game, and we need to put that land to tender and have it developed by the those who have the expertise to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Steele. And Candidate Gregg.
Thanks very much. Well, boy, am I ever on a different page than the rest of the people here. Like, we're on Treaty 6 territory, so let's like sell it all off to rich people, and exclude all the poor people from being able to use it. Let's go for it, I am for the city acquiring more property so that they can build more public luxuries for everyone to enjoy, not just rich people. And I really think that it's the wrong direction for the 68% of the voters who never voted last time. It's the wrong direction for them to go and sell off all our public assets. Maybe we should sell off the river valley too, sorry guys, but I'm a little bit more to the left than everybody else here, and I think we need like public spaces where everyone can enjoy it, where you don't have to have like a big balance on your credit card or your debit card to be able to enjoy it. I don't want more like expensive restaurants and bars and things like that. I want true public spaces where we can have services. We need land for having an urban reservation in our city. We need land for having community hubs, social service hubs. So I would ask council to really sit down and rethink this kind of idea of selling off all our public assets to rich people. Sorry, but I'm different. You guys have the 32% of people who voted in the last election may vote for you, but there's 68% the people that didn't vote, and those are the people I'm trying to get to vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Gregg. Next question, and this one is definitely not the first time you've heard this. Homelessness. This has been an issue we talk about for every election, I think. What are your thoughts and policies in addressing homelessness? First to answer this one this time will be Candidate Krushell.
Thank you. I was on city council when the 10-year plan to end homelessness was initiated. And I think it was a noble goal. And I think that all of us on council at the time did a number of different things to try to start the ball rolling in that direction. We put a number of resources together. I myself actually worked with the City of Edmonton Youth Council on the Heart to Art campaign, which was a year-long campaign where we educated in all the school, both Francophone public and as well as the Catholic School Board. We educated people through an art contest with our kids that produced amazing art and produced 110 grand for Boyle Street. And it brought up a pretty touchy issue, and it was used in curriculum to educate our kids as to why some people can be without a home. And I think that one of the problems that we do have is that we've been treating homeless as if it's one homogeneous group. Today I met with Yes and heard their concerns about the fact that we really do need to focus on prevention. And that means focusing resources on our youth who are without homes and focusing on not demonizing people who, through various different reasons, from mental health issues to poverty issues, are without a home. And so I think that we need to reevaluate our supports. We need to make sure we have a collaborative model where we're working with agencies and funding where we can collaborate. And I think that we need to I see that I'm out of time. Okay, well, you can check out my platform. Thank you. Obviously, I'm passionate.
Thank you. The little hand emoji, it gives you 30 seconds. So if you see that, you can just come to a close. Candidate Watson.
This is one of the first policies that I announced, and it's called the Basic Needs Policy. And when we looked at it, we were specific about what we as the City of Edmonton could do within our means and mandate so that we could stop making unrealistic promises as one organization to end homelessness or to end poverty, because those are complex issues and they require all levels of government and nonprofits and private industry. And so the Basic Needs Policy really focused on basic human needs. access to water. We called upon water stations to be installed throughout the city, access to public washrooms, the stop of criminalizing poverty. And so stop ticketing people, stop slashing tents, and really treat people with dignity and respect. Land is also a topic that we talk a lot about. And so we committed to land purchase discounts for organizations that are building community hubs in neighborhoods. And then finally, about how we help the agencies that are directly serving this community have a bigger impact for the city of Edmonton themselves to stop competing with them and actually help them through partnerships with private industry, through setting certain service standards for the agencies, and as well for helping to measure the entire ecosystem of services to determine whether there's gaps and how we're measuring the outcomes of our investments.
Thank you, Candidate Watson. Candidate Oshry.
On any given night, there's about 800 people that sleep without shelter, and there's about 2,500 people that experience chronic homelessness in our city. And if you're gonna have a civilized society, you have to take care of people that need it, and you have to do it right. And you know, the time of talking around this issue without doing anything about it is over, or doing enough about it is over, I'll say. So we've got a very practical and specific plan of what we're gonna do, which we released recently. We're gonna provide washrooms and showers for people that need it. We're gonna pay for 200 new units of affordable housing per year for the next 4 years. We're gonna empower our net and help teams to really expand the work that they do. And I've committed to fund $50 million in land acquisitions in order to provide for the affordable housing units, and then provide $70 million to Home Ed, which is the organization that really takes care of people in the under market of affordable housing. And so these are some of the things we can do with our capital, less so with our operating budget, which is going to be really stretched, but with our capital budget to really make a difference in this area. And, you know, I get really worked up about this. I get really frustrated because we've been talking about it for years and no one is doing enough about it. And so I've committed to make this a pillar of our campaign, and we're going to finally do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Oshry. Candidate Sohi.
Thank you for this question. The issues of homelessness, mental health, addiction, poverty, they're interconnected. One feeds the other, and they're very complicated problems, and we cannot have simplistic solutions to solve these complicated problems. What we need is someone who can bring people together. We need to have city working with nonprofit sector, with the private sector. We need to forge a better relationship with our provincial government, with our federal government. And I have the skill set to bring the people together. I have the experience to do that. And what I would like to do is make a strong advocacy to other orders of government that Edmonton needs help. We cannot tackle these issues on our own. We need a stronger partnership with provincial government to fund the services that are necessary for wrapped-around housing. That approach works. What we need is a partner that has been lacking in this provincial government. What I would like to do, build a broader coalition of leaders from our community, from regional partners, from Northern Alberta, to stress to this provincial government that when Edmonton is not living to its potential, when Edmontonians are being held back because they are being impacted by those intersecting social issues, our economy hurts, our social fabric hurts. And I'm going to use every tool that is available to Mayor's office to ensure that we have a stronger partner in the provincial government and mobilize community to make it happen.
Thank you, Candidate Sohi. Candidate Chukwudi, are you here? Candidate Chukwudi. All right, I will continue. Candidate Steele.
So I have a big vision here. I'm actually quite passionate about this. I really do want to solve homelessness. I know we've been talking about it for a long time. And I know that we can't do this alone, but we also can't keep doing the same thing and going back to the same partners. So I'm interested in finding a workaround solution, which involves working with private industry and also private benefactors who are connected to our city and passionate about our city. And I'm going to ask them to help us solve this issue. I'm going to call on those businesses who have a social conscience mandate. We will build tiny homes. We will offer full-time wraparound community supports, and then we will eventually get them employed as well. But we also, like Kim said, we need to do some preventative work, and we need to make sure that we stop criminalizing homelessness while we figure out how to solve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Steele. Candidate Gregg.
Thanks very much. Well, I like a lot of these ideas that the other candidates have, but I'd like to remind the people listening to this that several of the candidates that are running for office right now have been on council before, and those councils never seem to actually be able to deliver on. So the talk is great, you guys. I like the ideas, but when you're being funded by big developers, and you have to be interested in making them happy, I don't know that this problem is ever going to get dealt with. So if I'm elected mayor, my plan for dealing with this is to invest in social services hubs in every community. We have 153 communities, I think, in the city, and I want to have a social services hub that has like 6 or 8 shelter beds, with showers and everything, where people can walk to from their neighborhood. That'll cover the 800 people that aren't sleeping, Michael. If we have 8 beds in 153 communities, and there'll be full-time staff there. People that are in those shelters will be immediately being transitioned within a week to find some affordable housing. I also want to have like a soup kitchen in every community. I want to have that's 24/7 with staff. I want to have a library with terminals for people to connect to the education system, and a clinic with a nurse and a doctor, like 3 shifts a day. There's a nurse and a doctor that anyone can walk there and get free medicine and medical care. So that's how I want to deal with it. And I'm serious about it. That's one of the main reasons I've watched like former mayors talk about how they're going to deal with homelessness, and former councils build a great big hockey rink. All right, let's go for it, where rich people can go and have fun. Anyway, that's my plan, is to spread it out to
Thank you, Candidate Gregg. You are out of time. Candidate Comrie.
Thanks. I want to say to Brian, social shelters and more community involvement, I think it's the right thing to do. And I think a more proactive approach, I can't disagree with anyone who's been on city council that this issue is the same and the dial hasn't moved. But we must look at what perpetuates societal issues. An economic downturn, be it through industry itself or pushed upon you by the federal government. I oppose Justin Trudeau's vision. Today on this in this meeting, we've got a minister of natural resources that did not work in Edmonton and Alberta's best interest. And economic downturn and economic hardship perpetuates suicide, substance abuse, homelessness. And homelessness is not, that can be family oriented, where children are involved. But I'm here today for the same reason. Brian here's got a great idea. I'm tired of hearing about collaborating with other this, other that. I understand that, but I'm tired of the same old issue. The city of Edmonton right now has a program, YEG Ambassadors. And for Rick Comrie to try and get information about that, tells me it's not working. Tells me it's loaded with red tape and it just isn't working. And I'm tired of it because it shouldn't happen. But here's what I see. I see a federal minister of natural resources on this panel here now, who's part of the issue that has perpetuated society's issues. Homelessness is one of the biggest ones. And I'm tired of that. I think it's a huge embarrassment on Justin Trudeau and the Minister of Natural Resources. Edmonton is so much better than that.
I am sorry you're out of time, Candidate Comrie. Thank you. I am going to ask a follow-up question to this. The location of public services, public social services, such as shelters and public housing, can often be contentious in different neighborhoods. How would you determine where these services will be located in the city? First to answer this question will be Candidate Watson.
Concentration of services is a problem right now. We have a lot of communities right now that are bearing the burden of services, and that cannot be our future and ongoing approach. We need to meet people where they meet us without placing the burden on one area of the city. And so I believe that there's an opportunity for us to listen to communities who want to provide community hubs. Those community hubs also need to be located in communities that have access to employment. And so this can't be one area of the city. I think that this is a full spectrum view. Where are the neighborhoods that have the need? And where are the neighborhoods that provide access to employment and to community?
Thank you, Candidate Watson. Candidate Oshry.
I was at a meeting with leaders of the Chinese community in Chinatown, and I walked around Chinatown. And if you go down there these days, and for actually quite a few years in the past, you will see what they have to deal with on a daily basis. And having all the services in one neighborhood, I mean, if this was the neighborhood that you lived in, you would have the same concerns that they have. And the services that are being provided in those neighborhoods and elsewhere are being provided by really high valuable people doing a lot of really tough and valuable and good work. But they're not necessarily looking at the broader community and how they are providing those services and how these services provide challenges for the local community. So, you know, we have to look at other options. We've got city-owned land that, as I mentioned, we have to get out of around Blatchford and the exhibition lands and others that could be potential areas that we could accommodate these kind of services. And then there's a whole bunch of buildings in various areas of the city that are going to need to be repurposed out of COVID. C-class buildings that have come to their end of life, or given the economic realities, are going to have to be repurposed. And so these are the kind of things that we have to look at in order to mitigate the impacts of some of these services in certain neighborhoods around the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Oshry. Candidate Sohi.
You know, the high concentration of social services in certain areas absolutely have negative impact on communities, and we have seen that in the Chinatown, in Little Italy, and some part of the downtown. But people go there because that's the only place where those services are available. And the people who provide those services do their best to help people and also build a stronger relationship with community. They are community partners. I think another challenge is that even though there's a high concentration of social services, city does not prioritize those areas to give them additional services. I have heard from people in the Chinatown about lack of security, for example. Why would we not have more police presence in the Chinatown? Why do they have to hire their own security guards? I hear they're concerned about garbage collection. It's not being picked up more frequently as it should be, and there should be more concentrated support to attract more people and festivals into those areas. what I would propose to do if I get elected, that I will work with those business districts. I will work with the city council and the social agencies to look for solutions that allow us to, not highly concentrate in certain areas. We are going to retrofit old buildings. There's so high vacancy in the downtown. Why would we not work with some of the land private developers to retrofit those buildings to create more social housing in different parts of the city where it's possible to do so?
Thank you, candidate Sohi. I believe we have lost candidate Chukwudi. And so I will continue on to candidate Steele.
Well, I agree with what Michael said. We have, as long as we're holding on to land right now, if we don't sell it, we might as well use it for offering some services to some of these individuals. We need to keep them close to services. So they have to have access to jobs. They have to have access to community support. So we know we need to keep them close to that. But that's it. That's all I have today.
Thank you, candidate Steele. Candidate Gregg.
Thanks very much. Well, I sort of answered this question in my last little talk that I gave, but just to review that, like, if you think about it, there's this thing they call NIMBYism, not in my backyard. And it's a real thing. Like, nobody wants to have a great big shelter with, like, I live in Rossdale. We had the big camp down there. I had all kinds of crime in our neighborhood. Nobody wants that, of course. So the only fair solution is to have it in everyone's backyard. That's the only fair solution that we can have. We need to have shelters in every neighborhood, like, and we need to have social service hubs in every neighborhood. Like, take for instance Glenora. I grew up as a teenager in Glenora. It's kind of like a little elite neighborhood. They should have a homeless shelter there. And as far as Cheryl was talking about having work for these people in the neighborhood, well, what about people to shovel the walks? Like people in Glenora, which could go to the shelter and say, hey, bomb number 2, how would you like to have, like, I'll pay you like minimum wage to come and shovel my walks. Good, done. Walk over there, do it. I mean, there would be a pool of people that could do casual work right in your neighborhood. But that's the answer. It's in every neighborhood. That's how we decide what's fair. Not just plunk it in one neighborhood or another. Every neighborhood should take care of the most. Thank you. Bless you.
I'm sorry about that. Thank you very much for your answer, candidate Gregg. Candidate Comrie.
I had said earlier, an audit to show the taxpayers where the city of Edmonton is on a financial basis. Seems to me we've lost our fiscal compass. We don't know where we are financially. And you hear in the news following the federal election is that Justin he has no idea where he is financially either, and he's not concerned about it. But here we have tonight the federal Minister of Natural Resources that's with us. It comes from the ideology of the federal government, who our current mayor, Don Iveson, has adopted the policies that has put us in the doghouse. The city of Edmonton is so much better than this. But when I call in a financial audit, it is to expose and really define where we are financially. So I ask about the Downtown Business Association, and some of you talk about Chinatown. They're a forgotten community. I said earlier that these business models, 3, 5, 8, 10 years old, they're outdated. The Downtown Business Association, as we all know, are going to a mayoral forum. Their model is outdated. And Chinatown is a forgotten community. There is no enforcement that goes down there. You know why? They don't care. But that's not right for the city of Edmonton. Federal policy has pushed us to a breaking point. we're in crisis mode right now. We're in crisis mode. We need to act now. We need to be proactive to help those people in need. We need to stop spending money on LRT and rail transit, billions of dollars, when we have people dying in city streets.
I'm sorry, you are out of time. Candidate Krushell.
Thank you. You know, when I left City Council back in 2013, for family reasons, I had been on the front lines, battling as a city councilor, supporting the school surplus sites, where we were looking at more of a spread out model. We were looking at different ways to assist and provide housing for hard to house, for seniors who were in very fixed income situations, and a whole bunch of others. And I also did not see the concentration that we see today when I look at our downtown, and in particular, Chinatown. When I was on city council, Chinatown was still thriving. It was not in the shape that it is today. I recently did walk with some business leaders in the Chinatown, and I went into I think we went inside every business there, and I saw the devastation that has happened. And I think part of the reason why there's such a devastation is because of a combination of factors. One is we allowed concentration of both all the social agencies as well as all the harm reduction sites. Now, I believe in harm reduction. I see the need for that, but I do not understand the concentration in one location. And so I think that we need to take a much more proactive approach, reduce concentration. We need to provide the services, and we need to push the province in particular when it comes to the areas of providing wraparound services. And I think we need to take a different approach, which C5 and those guys have been doing, which is opening up community hubs where needed. So they opened up in Northeast Edmonton. They've been providing services and feeding 2,000 families. And they've been actually taking a not-for-profit, as well as working with the private sector, as well as working with government to make a real difference. And I think we need to stop with saying we're going to end, or we're going to stop, or we're going to dent homelessness. It's a complicated issue. But I think we as leaders going forward in this city, whoever the next mayor is, needs to stop with the concentration and needs to start being more proactive. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So moving right along, if I've kept track of this correctly, candidate Oshry will get to speak first this time. And the question is, what have I got here? Oh, yes, of course. Public transit. I'm sure that you have had this before, but what is your vision for improving public transit in our city? Candidate Oshry.
Thank you for that question. You know, the challenge with our public transit system right now is the chicken and the egg. We have to invest in our public transit and make it really, really good, so then people will actually want to use it more. But until we have people using it more, it's challenging to justify spend more money on it. And so it's a really tricky situation. You know, the city has been trying new things with the new route system that they put in. And I think we have to let that play out for a period of time through the winter or part of the winter. And then, you know, I'm nothing if not flexible. So it's not perfect. There are some things we have to do differently, and we should make adjustments. You know, the LRT to the West End, no matter what any candidate, I'll say one specific candidate says, is not cancelable. The contracts, you know, I pushed for the West LRT when I was on council, and we got that done, and the contracts aren't cancelable. The land's been bought, the business is expropriated. Like, you know, with that train, there's no stopping that train, no pun intended. And then we have funding in place for the next leg as well. And so the rest of the LRT system after that is going to depend on other levels of government funding, as we all know, and the general economy, and then the city's priorities in our capital budget. And so we'll have to see how that plays out over the next several years, but the next sort of two lines are in place. But going back to the rest, well, the rest of the transit system, we also have to make it safe. One of the big problems we have right now is people, and especially women, are hesitant on using our transit system because it's not safe. And we have to do something about that as well in a very practical way. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Oshry. Candidate Sohi.
When I moved to Edmonton, public transit was the only way that I could get around to go to school or find a better job. And I continued to use public transit even during my time when I was a city councillor. I would often take it to work or back home from work. I see public transit as an investment in mobility, but also social mobility, because it allows you to connect to the community. It allows you to find better opportunities and better employment opportunities. Public transit is also necessary for businesses to have access to employees who cannot drive for affordability reasons. I am committed to getting our LRT finished, West End LRT absolutely, then further to Southwest. And also we need to get LRT to Castle Downs. Castle Downs has been waiting for too long to get the LRT going, as was Millwoods. Both communities were promised the LRT in 70s. I worked hard to deliver the Millwoods LRT. I'm going to work hard to deliver Castle Downs LRT if I get elected as mayor. We also need to make public transit affordable, accessible, including DATS, because DATS allows people with disabilities to move around. I'm concerned about the recent changes that City Council has made, where the service is reduced in number of communities that have reduced access for seniors, for people with disabilities, newcomers, racialized communities. And we also need to make public transit safer for all of us, including women who use that service at night or evening times or daytime. So safe, accessible, affordable public transit is key for me.
Thank you, Candidate Sohi. Candidate Steele.
I do hear about this issue a lot. It's causing a lot of quality of life issues right now with the new busing system. And we also have issues with DATS for seniors and for those who have disabilities and rely on that system to travel around our city. So I have committed to reviewing everything and to ensure that this is a system that is working for our residents. And we also need to make sure that it is safer, because if I refuse to take public transit because I don't feel safe, then I cannot ask Edmontonians to take public transit. So I have committed to making it safer as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Steele. Candidate Gregg.
Thanks, Matthew. Well, I think we seriously have to rethink public transit in our city in light of COVID and in light of the climate emergency. And I think one thing we really have to think about is that if we travel less, we need less mass transit. And so that's really and if we travel less, we burn less. Okay, so it's easier on the environment. So that's something to really work on, is designing our city so that people can work close to home and get what the 15-minute neighborhood, maybe 14-minute neighborhood. What do you think? But also the idea of it, this pandemic is not going to be the last. Is it really smart to take a bunch of people and stick them in a compartment and let them exchange pathogens from their respiratory systems? Is that really a smart way to travel around? And is it safe for a bunch of strangers to all get into this box? You don't know who to trust or not. So what about we're moving to having autonomous vehicles? That's the way it's going. Nobody's going to drive cars anymore. This automobile culture that we live in is dead. It's gone. I won't see this change. I'm too old, but it's never going to go back to this where we have people roaring around at huge speeds, burning up fossil fuel. It's never going to happen again on this planet. We're going to have autonomous vehicles that drive themselves. They're going to miss each other at the intersections. They're not going to have to stop and start and stop and start, burning more and more energy. So we have to start looking to the future and adapting our city to be a city of the future, not a city of, like, I love cars, but they're gone, people. Like, it's gone. It's like, it's bad. It was fun, but it's over. That's what I think about our transportation system.
Thank you, Candidate Gregg. Candidate Comrie.
Can I request 4 minutes? I may need it. I'm so disappointed to hear what I've just heard. The automobile is your economy. Let me start with this. Minister of Natural Resources. The WHO says Canada is responsible for 1.6% of the climate issue. Justin Trudeau has us in at 80%. I think we should be generous and double it at 3.2%. That would be responsible. So let me say this, that Justin's federal policies, his ideology on climate change is what's causing homelessness and suicide. So if we didn't use our oil here, where would we get it from? I'll tell you where. The Liberal ex-Prime Minister, Paul Martin, owns a shipping line that brings oil in from Saudi Arabia. Stop the BS here. I've just about heard enough. That's the reason I'm running in this race. The automobile is a cornerstone of your rights and freedoms. Not only that, it is the driver that spends the money in our community. LRT and busing are directly related, and the seniors rely on busing. The more LRTs you build, the worse the busing gets because you can't do both. The LRT is not being used. We are funding it as taxpayers. I say shame on you guys.
Thank you, Candidate Comrie. Candidate Krushell.
Well, I believe, first of all, we need an integrated transportation system so that we can all get around. That includes biking, that includes driving, because most of us drive vehicles. But I do recognize that we need a transit system so that people and many people are in a position where they either choose or they can't afford other alternative options. And so we need to have a vibrant transportation system. I think that we need to focus on reviewing our on-demand transit service rather than having to throw it out. At least I'm hoping we can tweak it. But I have been shocked to see how we don't have a lot of on-demand transit service north of Edmonton. There's huge swaths that have no access. I'm very concerned about access for seniors. Our DAT system, we could be looking at a city of validating some of our local technology that could help improve our DAT system so that people are picked up for appointments when needed. I also think we need to look at a more on-demand type of approach so that we can get seniors and frail elderly to appointments that they need to make. And whether that's working with the private sector and the not-for-profit agencies in terms of how we can get people to the appointments they need to get to, we should look at that. In terms of the LRT, I am very concerned. I lost a critical vote when I was on council where we changed the reason why we build the LRT and the policy. I felt that it needed to be goods movement because we would have seen the lines quicker and they would have got to Sherwood Park to help pay for the system faster. But it is correct. We are locked in an LRT system, and I will do everything that I can to ensure that we are as prudent as possible with our tax dollars. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Krushell. Candidate Watson.
Transit's essential, and there's a large portion of Edmontonians that rely on transit. This is not a choice for them. 35% of the people in Edmonton are below the $30,000 a year household income, and then we have a large demographic of seniors. And so what I would like to see is high quality transit service that is accessible by those population groups. And we do have many, many areas of the city right now where we don't have that service. And bus and the LRT routes are the most easy for us to adjust. They should be easy for us to adjust. What I'm interested in actually is probably cracking open the amalgamated transit union agreements, because I understand right now that they are a big reason why we are struggling to change routes. And they also are making this a very inaffordable service that is essential and so critical to the majority of Edmontonians' day-to-day lives.
Thank you, Candidate Watson. Okay. So on my list, we next have Candidate Sohi. We'll get to answer first. And this is a short question, but a complicated one. What would you do to counter racism in Edmonton?
No, I have experienced racism in my life, and sometimes I still continue to experience racism, particularly from those who are, who see me as different from them, right? I am deeply concerned about this. The first policy that we announced was ending hate violence and hate-based racism and discrimination in our city. I propose a 100-day action plan. And if I get elected on our first council day, I will bring forward a motion for city council to consider and pass, directing our administration to start immediately implementing policies and programs, empowering communities, giving them the resources to fight against racism and discrimination. In a city like ours, which is a very inclusive and welcoming city, I am concerned about the rise of hate violence, and racism and discrimination. It has no place in Edmonton. And I will do what I can in my capacity as a mayor. Actually, one of the reasons I'm stepping up in this role is that I want Edmonton to continue to remain an inclusive, welcome place for everyone. And I'm going to work hard to end racism and discrimination. There's 4 planks to our policy. I would encourage everyone to check out our website, sohi.ca, because for me, racism, discrimination, or any sort of phobia is unacceptable in Edmonton.
Thank you, Candidate Sohi. Next on my list is Candidate Steele.
I think that we need a leader who talks regularly in a compassionate but firm way and reminds Edmontonians about societal expectations. I am big on connecting with people, and I'm a huge fan of the leadership style from Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, and how she is continually connecting with her citizens and making videos all the time. She's in her car on the way to the airport and she'll do a Facebook Live. So for me, I would just be telling you all the time what I expect from your behavior. And if there's something going on that I'm unhappy with, you will know about it. And I will remind you of how we are supposed to behave as a society. And I think just gentle reminders like that regularly will help to turn the culture around. You need a leader who outlines the expectations. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Steele. Candidate Gregg.
Thank you. Well, I'm absolutely sick hearing talk about fighting racism. Like, that is not the solution, to fight it. We are not going to like whip and imprison people to make them be nicer, okay? It's not the solution, okay? The solution is education. We have to teach everyone, especially children, to love and respect everyone. Like, we need more love in our society. Of course, we have to have regulations for out-of-hand control people that are just extreme bullies and mean people. We have to have, but that's not, but just putting bad people in jail or punishing them or whipping them, whatever you want to do, is not the way we're going to get rid of racism. So I'm sick of hearing people talking about fighting and anti-racism, all this stuff. Let's talk about love and respect for everyone, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Gregg. Candidate Comrie.
Okay, so, it's a real divided world right now. And you know, at different corners of the globe, you see so much unrest. And I was born and raised here. And so I don't, you know, Mr. Sohi, you know, and I can understand, because I know every forum that we've come to, he's indicated that he's come from another country and another background. So, you know, I have respect for that. And I think that the world is trending in some ways, it's trending in the right way. And then in other ways, you know, we just ended a war in Afghanistan. I guess it'll never be over. So the challenges are there. You know, I see some bright lights, and then on the other side, so I don't know where I sit, but I'm certainly conscious of it, and it's something that we have to concentrate on. And I think it's just a daily, weekly, it's a battle for us to stay focused on, like Brian said, let's focus on love and not hate. And yet the world is so divided. So it's a challenge. Thanks.
Thank you, Candidate Comrie. Candidate Krushell.
No, I believe actually that leadership starts with a leader who has empathy. I agree with Diana. I think that we need a leader who will call out racism, who will attend the rallies when groups come forward and talk about these issues. I have done so and listened to the concerns both from the Muslim community, especially with women being attacked wearing hijabs just because of the fact that they're wearing a hijab. I feel that some of the approaches that the city can take is raising awareness about the impacts of what happens when we have tolerance for racism. And I think that all of us as a society need to recognize that we all play a part in allowing racism to take place, and that we can all take part in trying our best to make a difference and stop it. And I think a lot of that would start with the education system. You know, I did work with the City of Edmonton Youth Council on the homeless initiative, where we did a lot of education through art. I think a similar option should be considered on the issue of racism and working with it. You know, kids are the ones that don't think about racism when they're first born. They learn that. And I think it's really important that all of us show leadership. And that's not just the mayor, that's all of us in Edmonton.
Thank you, Candidate Krushell. Candidate Watson.
Ending racism and discrimination is going to take everyone. And the city of Edmonton is not going to be able to end racism on their own. It's going to take deep partnerships within the communities that are affected. For example, the Islamic community has created some very specific recommendations on how to end Islamophobia. Some of those recommendations actually were included in the Safe City for Women and Girls policy that we created. So as mayor, it's my duty to listen, to invite and amplify the voices that aren't in the rooms when decisions are being made that affect them. The city can also do its part for sure by reviewing bylaws that disproportionately target and criminalize racialized communities, again, tied into our basic needs policy. But it's really about creating culture within the city of Edmonton that's educated, inclusive, and empathetic to the people that they serve.
Thank you, Candidate Watson. Candidate Oshry.
This time of year is the Jewish holidays. For those of you that may not know, it was New Year's last week. It's Day of Atonement this week. And what people don't know, if you're Jewish and you go to synagogue in Edmonton, the Jewish community, which I'm part of, hire police every year to watch the front and back door of the synagogue. And it's been like that for my whole life in Edmonton. So this is Edmonton, where it's an open, inclusive city. We talk about this racism like it's a new thing. It's been going on here for decades. So what we have to do about it is complicated. I might be a bit of a pessimist. We're never going to end racism. We're never going to end poverty. We're never going to end homelessness. But what we have to do is make sure that none of these things are chronic and serious and in the sense of the numbers. And, I'm hopeful, though, that it's a very, very small percentage of our population. And what we need to do about it is we need to make sure that there's stronger hate laws, which is not a city mandate. It's the province and the federal government, because right now they're abysmal. We have to call it out each and every time, which we don't do. We have to educate people and have people understand that every culture is actually the same. People have the same hopes and dreams for their families as we do for ours, no matter what their background, their gender, their ethnicity. And we have to make sure that there is appropriate policing when needed around this issue. And then the last thing I'll say, which some people might not think is connected, but we have to make sure we have a strong economy. The stronger the economy, the more everyone shares in the success, and the less there are people that would blame somebody given their economic realities of the day. So when you put that all together, we're sure going to do a good job in addressing this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Oshry. Okay, so answering this next question first will be Candidate Steele. And the question is about how the job will be done. Should you win, you will still have just one vote on City Council. How will you build consensus and work with the rest of Council so that you can accomplish things and see these goals realized?
I think I'm a pretty personable person to begin with, and I'm able to compromise where I need to and work. I really can work with anyone. So I don't see any problems in that role at all. I think I will be able to create a strong leadership team where everyone is supportive of everyone else. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Steele. Candidate Gregg.
Thanks very much. Well, yeah, that's a really good question. How are we going to collaborate with the other candidates that are elected? And to me, it's all about listening, finding common ground. And my experience, like for 15 years, I led a rock and roll band. We worked 6 nights a week, in and out. I tell you, artists are not the easiest people to always deal with. And so I have a lot of experience in how to collaborate with other people and get things done together. And you have to listen. That's the main thing. You have to listen and you have to find common ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Gregg. Candidate Comrie.
The group that we have here today are all people that are able to collaborate and get along with others. And that's one thing in all of the forums that I've been involved with. Each and every one are able to do that. There's one candidate that's not here, and he's continuously not here. And his campaign is for whatever it's worth, he's decided not to participate. But I think, honestly, showing that he can't get along with people. But in this group, you've got everyone, I think, that can find common ground with others. And I think we're all well experienced and we're able to do that. I think to bring the community to hold mayor forums so that the taxpayer can have a say with the mayor is really an important key, so that the taxpayer has an outlet. I get so many emails now, I'm sure the others do as well, that people are so concerned about this issue or that issue, that the collaboration is definitely the key, and it's possible to do. Congratulations to all the other forum candidates here on, and that's one thing that I've drawn as energy from you guys, is that you've all shown to me that regardless of who wins this race, you'd be able to collaborate.
Thank you, Candidate Comrie. Candidate Krushell.
one of the things that I put out on my platform is leadership commitments, because I have had the opportunity to see different mayors in action, and I recognize that the mayor is only one vote, and that if they're going to be successful in getting any vision passed, they need to work with councillors. I know most of the councillors that are on council right now. I've certainly helped support many of them, actually, in terms of when I left city council, I continued to help councillors and people that I thought were good to get elected. And the first thing that I would do is meet with each councillor to understand their perspectives and priorities. I would then immediately bring the councillors together to start team building. The first thing that the mayor needs to do is look at everyone's platform together and work on a common ground process so that we come out united and have a vision moving forward. The other thing that I have seen successful mayors do is to empower councillors very early. I would do that because the next mayor and council is going to be very challenged in terms of dealing with some of issues, and especially when it comes to our economy and moving forward with not just economic recovery, but growth. And so it would start by empowering. And then the other key thing is that mayors that I've seen who've done really well are mayors that don't take credit for what other councillors are doing. So when you empower, you also support, and you take as the mayor all of the heat and all of the issues, because that's part of the job and that's part of the leadership. So you as a mayor have to take accountability, and you need to empower those councillors in order to get effective change to happen.
Thank you, Candidate Krushell. Candidate Watson.
What we're talking about is leadership at the core. And I do have extensive experience leading large, diverse, even global teams. When you start with values, the values of kindness, of curiosity, of collaboration, and adherence to the golden rule that we all learned as children, I think you're starting from a really good place. And so when we think about this council, it's about uniting the council around a shared vision, and then really keeping us focused on executing against that vision. I'm hopeful that we see a really diverse and experienced council that's going to all bring very unique strengths and perspectives, and then really determining through their strengths, experience, and skill set, some identified portfolios that they can take ownership and empowerment of. I think that council can be an antagonistic body, or truly an empowered set of deputies that are all working together to achieve a common vision for a better Edmonton.
Thank you, Candidate Watson. Candidate Oshry.
Well, thank you, Matthew. I worked with virtually all of the city councillors that are there now. And, you know, I got along with everybody. They all liked and respected me. The one person that didn't is running for mayor. So, you know, he's not going to be there. So don't have to worry about that. The councillors that have since been there after I left 4 years ago, I've gotten to know quite well and reached out to them numerous occasions over the years. And so, you know, what I'm trying to demonstrate is I'm going to be able to build a team and bring everyone together. We're all going to have different views of certain things, but I think I'll be able to get them all together to at least move in the same direction and achieve a bunch of things. And you know, I've got a track record of success. I've done that numerous times with large groups with hundreds of people, and you know, putting people in positions where they can succeed. And you know, I have no problem doing the work and letting them take credit for the success. We all have to share in that success, and you know, I'm going to be able to do that. It's really complex. This, you know, city council and the city organization as a whole, with, you know, 12,000 plus employees and $3 billion budget, is a very complex organization and entity. And we have to make sure that we have people at the top that have experience in how to run something that big and that expensive and that complicated. And we have to, in order to do that efficiently, get everybody on the same page, or at least generally in the same page. And so I'm extremely confident that I'll be able to do that, and use everyone's past experiences to the benefit of the citizens in order to get a whole bunch of stuff done that we need to do. There's going to be lot of tough decisions and tough moments, and we really need some strong leadership to get that done. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Oshry. Candidate Sohi.
If you allow me, before I answer this question, I just want to thank Rick Comrie for his compassionate comment towards me on racism, because it reminds me the goodness of people, right? That we're all good people. And I had a very terrible experience over the weekend while I was door knocking. An angry person, not just once, but almost for 5 or 10 minutes, just yelled and screamed at me, calling me a terrorist and telling me to go away and all that, right? So very persistent in his hatred. So, so Rick's comment absolutely, soothes me to hear and everyone else's comments about how inclusive we are and need to continue to be. So I wanted to acknowledge that. Consensus is key at City Council. And I'm known as a consensus builder. And I have done big things because of my collaborative approach to decision-making, from getting City Council support and approval on the LRT to Millwoods, my work on the downtown arena, where I worked closely with Mayor Mandel to have other council members support the project, my work on Trans Mountain Pipeline Expansion Project, which was a big undertaking and could not have been possible without collaborative approach. So I believe in collaboration, Elwer. That's how I succeed. That is how I have done big things, and I'll apply that principle to decision-making at City Council, listening, empowering, and working together to deliver on behalf of Edmontonians together.
Thank you, Candidate Sohi. We are running low on time, and I have time for just one more question. So I'm going to ask this question. I'm hoping we can get this done by 9:30. This is our final one for the evening. The first person to speak will be Candidate Gregg, and this one is a simple one. What community do you live in, and what have you done for your local community?
I live in Rossdale. I've lived all over the city, but I've lived here for 34 years. I live in a settler's house. I live in between two great big huge infill houses, $1 million houses, in my little shack. And for 20 years, almost just shy of 20 years, I organized a volunteer-run open stage at my community hall, which was a place where people could come and gather for free and enjoy music. So that's one thing that I did for my community, but also for the whole city. I've been a mover in making the music community happen in Edmonton. I opened up for Led Zeppelin in 1969, and I've played at the Edmonton Gardens. That's why I sort of don't like them smashing down big arenas. They smashed that one down to build one, and now they built another big arena downtown, which I will not go into. I refuse to go into that until the homeless problem is resolved. The councillors here that worked on that, I'm ashamed that you went ahead with that project before dealing with our homelessness problem. But anyway, that's what I've done in my own community. I've been active in the music community in Rossdale and the whole city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Candidate Gregg. Candidate Comrie.
Hi, thanks. And before I end, I just want to say thanks to you for doing such a great job, and all the other candidates for being here. To answer your question, I've done what the city should do, and that's get out of real estate. So I've sold my homes, and I've rented a home recently, and now I'm in a high rise. So I've gotten rid of all the extra necessary work, but in every location, I've always supported the seniors around me. And if a senior was in need, I was always there for them. And I think a lot about the seniors. I just had a senior reach out to me about her busing issues, and that her busing has been eliminated. And of course, this is a big concern for me. So we talk about LRT and busing. How can we afford all this? Truth is, we can't. We got to make changes. It'll be tough decisions to make. but supporting seniors in my community has really been a big thing for me. Thanks so much again.
Thank you, Candidate Comrie. Candidate Krushell.
In 2013, when I left City Council, my father-in-law was battling cancer, and at one point I had both my in-laws living with us. So we actually moved out of our small community, which I loved, of Prince Rupert, and moved adjacent to the Westmount community, which is, I would argue, a 15-minute neighborhood that we talk about in our planning. And the irony for me was that when I moved into that neighborhood, I was the councillor who fought really hard to get the neighborhood renewal program for the city of Edmonton, where we fix older neighborhoods. It's a dedicated tax. And to date, we have fixed 237 of the 300 neighborhoods targeted. And Westmount was the community that was up for neighborhood renewal. And I ended up co-chairing the decorative street lighting committee. And I will tell you that I have never door knocked so much in my life. I discovered that the petition process that we had from the other perspective of being a resident was really arduous and made it very tough for us to get enough signatures to get the decorative streetlights in our neighborhood. So we used to joke that we haunted people. We were the monster under your bed because we haunted people so much in terms of getting those signatures. So I worked very hard to help with the neighborhood renewal decorative streetlight program for Westmount, and I'm happy to say we were successful and the area is much better for it.
Thank you, Candidate Krushell. Candidate Watson.
When people ask me what the reasons are of why I made the decision not to move to Silicon Valley in 2015 when given that choice, one of the things that I talk about is Edmonton's spirit and commitment to community. So this is one of my favorite things about our city. And so I really love that you ended today's debate with this topic because it's really energizing for me. So I live in the community of Lessard. But as a family, we actually base our contributions to our community based on one of our family values called We Care and Get Involved. And so we meet as a family quarterly where we talk about where we're going to volunteer together as a community or as a family. And we base our community engagement based on issues or experiences that we've had. So the community engagement that we have is not necessarily neighborhood focused. It's more around, we've given our time and built houses with Habitat for Humanity. We volunteer at every Homeless Connect event. We are very involved with the Terrace Center because my mom was a single mom. And so I think that that's a really important organization. So our community involvement, our community contributions have more been based on our own experiences, and they're more city focused or organizational focused.
Thank you, Candidate Watson. Candidate Oshry.
Well, during my, I guess, 45 plus years in Edmonton, I've actually lived in quite a few different communities. I was brought up in the west end of Edmonton. I bought a little house in McKernan. I lived in Grove Estates, lived in 3 other West Edmonton communities, one of which I live in now. So I've been a resident across the city of sorts. What I've done, I mean, on my time on city council, as some of you might know, I pushed hard to get the West LRT started. And these things, as we all know, takes many years. I also pushed to get the rec center to the West End. We got the design done, and then of course the world fell apart and the money for the construction is not there right now. We'll see how that plays out over time. And outside of my city council experience, I'm actually quite proud of it. And maybe it's not super exciting for people on this call, but I've created hundreds and hundreds of jobs, high-paying jobs in our city. And what that means is that there's hundreds of people now that are having a high quality of life. They've got money to support their families, to pay a mortgage, to pay their rent, and to make contributions in the city. And we don't talk a lot about the private sector, but the private sector drives 60% or so of the economy in our city. And so I'm very, very proud of that success, and I'm proud of sharing that success with hundreds of families. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Candidate Oshry. Candidate Sohi.
Well, I have lived in southeast part of Edmonton for 40 years, in Millwoods, in Meadows, and my earliest involvement in community was volunteering for Millhurst Community League, then volunteering for Meadows Community League as well as Southwood Community League. I led a number of cultural organizations for Punjabi Cultural Association, Punjabi Arts Association, Millwoods President's Council fireworks that happened on every July, with the exception of last few years. So I have been deeply involved in the community of Millwoods and Meadows from day one. I was the founding member of the Millwoods President's Council, Millwoods Crime Prevention Council that I talked about earlier on. As an elected official, I fought hard for the LRT. Now it's got done. I fought hard to get Meadows Rec Center and library built. I fought hard to have a Millwoods stand-alone library build, fought hard for improvements in the transit system. So I can list a long list of things that I have done, including my work on UPass, which helped so many students improve access to affordable public transit system. I had the honor to work with Kim on making sure that we are fixing up our older neighborhoods under the neighborhood renewal program. Right? So this list of things that I have done for our city, but they were all done through collaboration. They were all done through by working together, because no one person can do much. It is a collaboration of communities and the people you work with, and that's the kind of leadership I will take to City Hall, pulling people together under collaborative leadership to get things done.
Thank you, Candidate Sohi. And Candidate Steele.
Like Michael, I grew up in a number of neighborhoods, or I've lived in a number of neighborhoods here in Edmonton. I grew up in Clairview. I've been in Crestwood for the past 14 years, and I am the president of Crestwood Community League. And I really do it all. I say, if you need anything, reach out, let me know. I've often gone to buy Diet Coke for disabled community members, or if they want McDonald's, I run out and get it for them. I run 2 community Facebook groups that have over 2,000 people in each group, where I keep them up to date daily with community information. I usually give them a funny quote or meme as well to make them laugh for the day or pick up their spirits. I also started making videos when COVID first hit, and I made 500 daily videos in a row and ended them on July 15th when we thought we were done with COVID, or when the province thought we were done with COVID, just to check in and provide people with regular updates on the mandates that were taking place, and just to let them know that there was a friendly face there for them to see every day. And it was community-based, and now it's spread citywide. So, but I also do work with the Pilgrims Hospice, as mentioned, but the Pilgrims Hospice is located in Crestwood. So I do also champion them as well. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Steele. And in fact, that is it. Look at that, 9:29, not too bad. Well, I would like to thank all candidates that are here tonight for participating. I'd like to thank you very much, for making this easy for me, and for the civility and cooperation of this whole thing. It was a delight. I thank you for putting your names forward for public office. That's a noble thing to do, and I know this work is not as glamorous as some people might think. So thank you for being here. And I thank everybody at home for tuning in and being interested in the election and engaged in these issues. These are important times and important issues, and I'm glad you tuned in. And thank you once again to Rat Creek Press and the team of volunteers behind the scenes helping me out. I apologize if I frown during any of this. I'm told when I think hard, it looks like I'm angry. I'm definitely not angry. Thank you, and have a wonderful evening, everybody.
Thank you very much. This was fantastic. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Good night.
Hey guys, thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
Thank you very, very much, Rat Chris and Matthew and everyone.
Thank you.